The plane that vanished, the mystery of MH370. A modern Boeing 777, 239 souls on board. And then, nothing. No distress call, no explosion, no wreckage, no warning. In an age of satellites that can read a license plate from space, how does a 200-ton aircraft simply cease to exist? This is the story of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a flight that took off and never came down. Not where anyone expected, not in any way anyone can fully explain. How can one of the most advanced machines on Earth disappear without a trace? Stay with us, because more than a decade later, nobody can answer that question. It was March 8th, 2014.
Just after midnight, Kuala Lumpur International Airport was quiet, the way airports are in those strange hours between midnight and dawn. Flight 370 was bound for Beijing, China, a routine red-eye, the kind of flight that thousands of people take every single day, without a second thought. The aircraft was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the safest, most technologically advanced planes ever built. Before that night, the entire Boeing 777 fleet, worldwide, had one of the best safety records in aviation history. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. 239 people in total, families heading home, business travelers, a group of artists returning from an exhibition, ordinary lives, about to become part of one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the modern age. In the cockpit sat Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53 years old, a veteran of the skies with more than 18,000 hours of flying experience. He was known among colleagues as calm, meticulous, even a little bit of an aviation obsessive. At home, he had built his own flight simulator. He was, by every account, one of the most trusted and respected pilots in the airline. Beside him was First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, just 27 years old, still early in his career, with a little over 2,000 hours of flight time. This was one of his final training flights before being certified to fly the 777 without supervision. Two pilots, one with decades of mastery, one just beginning his story. Modern 777s do not require a flight engineer. The aircraft systems are managed by the two pilots alone. Behind them, 10 cabin crew members moved through the aisles, checking seat belts, offering blankets, doing the small human rituals that happen on every flight, every night, at 12:41 in the morning. Flight 370 lifted off the runway. It climbed to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, traveling at roughly 470 knots. Everything about this flight was ordinary, routine, forgettable, until it wasn't. At 1:19 in the morning, air traffic control in Kuala Lumpur made radio contact one final time, instructing the flight to contact Vietnamese air traffic control next. The response was calm, ordinary, almost bored. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those were the last words anyone outside that cockpit would ever hear from Flight 370. Minutes later, the plane's transponder, the device that broadcasts an aircraft's identity and altitude to civilian radar, went dark. Just off. The aircraft vanished from civilian radar screens over the South China Sea, in the exact stretch of sky where Malaysian airspace ends and Vietnamese airspace begins. A blind spot. A gap between two countries' radar coverage. If someone wanted a plane to disappear unnoticed, this was the moment. And this was the place. Was this a catastrophic technical failure? A fire? A sudden depressurization that incapacitated everyone aboard? Or did someone deliberately make this aircraft disappear? Here is where the story turns from tragic to deeply strange. Malaysian military radar, which operates independently of civilian systems, continued to track an unidentified aircraft. And what that radar showed defied everything investigators expected. The plane didn't crash. It turned, sharply, to the west, back across the Malay Peninsula, then out over the Andaman Sea, following a path that seemed to hug the border of Malaysian and Thai airspace, as if whoever was flying it understood exactly how radar coverage worked, and exactly how to slip through the seams. Then, even military radar lost it. But the story doesn't end there, because 6 more hours after the plane vanished, something kept happening. A satellite, operated by a company called Inmarsat, continued receiving faint, automated handshake signals from the aircraft. Brief digital pings, exchanged automatically between the plane's systems and the satellite, containing no location data, no messages, nothing except confirmation that the aircraft was still powered, still in the sky, still flying. For nearly 7 hours after Flight 370 was supposed to have crashed, it was still airborne. Who was flying that plane? Why did no one send a distress call? Not one word in over 7 hours? And where, in that vast and empty ocean, did it finally come down? What followed was the largest search operation in the history of aviation. Ships and aircraft from more than 25 countries combed the South China Sea in the earliest days. Then the search shifted, dramatically, to the remote southern Indian Ocean, one of the most desolate stretches of water on the planet, thousands of miles from the nearest coastline. Military ships, deep-sea sonar, underwater drones capable of scanning the ocean floor in complete darkness. Satellite imagery analyzed pixel by pixel. The search would eventually cost well over $150 million, and it would stretch on for years. And still, the ocean gave up nothing. Think about that. In a world where we can track a phone through a forest, where satellites photograph missile silos from orbit, an entire airplane, the length of a football field, disappeared into the sea and stayed hidden. How is that even possible? With no wreckage and no cockpit recordings, investigators were left with theories. Painful, competing, unresolved theories. Some believe this was deliberate, that someone in that cockpit turned the plane around and flew it, intentionally, into the most remote ocean on Earth. Investigators studied Captain Zahari's flight simulator and found that a flight path into the southern Indian Ocean had at some point been plotted on it. It proves nothing on its own, but it raises questions that have never fully gone away. Others point to hijacking. Could someone have taken control of the aircraft by force? 2 passengers were found to be traveling on stolen passports, briefly fueling worldwide panic, before investigators concluded they were likely migrants seeking asylum, not terrorists. Then there is the mechanical theory. A fire in the cargo hold, perhaps from the lithium batteries known to be on board, that slowly disabled the plane's systems and crew, leaving the aircraft to fly on, unguided, until it ran out of fuel. Related to this is the hypoxia theory, a sudden loss of cabin pressure that quietly incapacitated everyone aboard, pilots included, while the plane continued flying itself, on autopilot, into oblivion. Some have floated cyber attack theories, suggesting the plane's systems were remotely compromised, though no solid evidence has ever supported this. And inevitably, darker theories emerged. Claims of secret military involvement, suggestions that a nation's air defense system shot the plane down by mistake, then buried the evidence. On the internet, the theories grew even stranger. Some corners of the web speculated about interference beyond anything conventional, unexplained phenomena, even the idea that something not of this world had crossed paths with Flight 370 that night. Could some unknown object have disrupted the aircraft's systems? Is there information about that night that has never been made public? To be clear, these ideas remain internet speculation, not evidence. But when an event this massive has no confirmed explanation, the human mind searches for one anyway. For years, the ocean held its secrets. Then, in July of 2015, on the French island of Réunion, thousands of miles from the search zone, a beachcomber found a large section of an aircraft wing washed up in the sand. It was a flaperon, a control surface from the wing. Investigators confirmed it belonged to a Boeing 777. Barnacles and marine growth covered its surface, evidence that it had drifted, alone, across the ocean for well over a year. Over the following months, more pieces emerged, scattered along the coastlines of Mozambique, Tanzania, and other parts of the African coast. A piece of an engine cowling, a section of interior paneling, fragments too small and too battered to explain much, but enough to confirm one devastating fact. The plane had gone down in the Indian Ocean, but the main fuselage, the black boxes, the flight data and cockpit voice recorders that could finally explain what happened in that cockpit, have never been found. Somewhere on the floor of the Indian Ocean, in some of the deepest, darkest water on Earth, the answer is still sitting there, waiting. More than a decade has passed. For the families of the 239 people aboard Flight 370, there has been no funeral with a body to bury. No black box recording to explain a father's, a mother's, a child's final moments. Just an ocean and a silence that has never been broken. Some spouses have grown old without ever remarrying, holding on to a hope that has never been formally taken from them. Some children have grown into adults, having spent more of their lives without a parent than with one, still asking questions no one can answer. That is the cruelest part of this story. Not just that 239 people vanished, but that the people who loved them have never been allowed to stop wondering. More than a decade later, the biggest mystery in the history of aviation remains unsolved. What really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? Did it end quietly in the remote waters of the southern Indian Ocean, exactly as the satellite data suggests? Was there human intervention in that cockpit? A decision made deliberately, in silence? Or is there still a piece of this story that the world has never been told? What do you think happened to MH370? Because until the wreckage is found, the mystery remains alive. If you found this story fascinating, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries, unsolved disappearances, and unexplained events. And if you have your own theory about what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, share it in the comments below. Because sometimes, the greatest mysteries are not the ones we have solved, but the ones that continue to ask questions long after the world has moved on.